What's good, Guardians? Today, we're taking a look at a great build to get past any Grandmaster Nightfall that stands in your way. This build's going to offer you the ability to freeze your enemies, stun champions, gain a damage buff as well as an overshield, and become invisible if you need to catch your breath or res a teammate, and that's because the exotic Gyrfalcons. We're going to break down everything from the subclass and mods to weapons and gear, and of course a dim and MOBALYTICS link will be down in the description if you want to go ahead and save it to your own Guardian. With that being said, let's get straight into it. First up, let's go ahead and talk about our subclass selection. For this build, we're going to be using Prismatic because we can really dip into different subclasses all at once, which is going to be perfect for what we're going for. For the superhero, I'm choosing to use Golden Gun. This way you can just get some fast, easy damage out to any champs or bosses that you need to. For the abilities here, I chose to use Gambler's Dodge, and this is because whenever you dodge near your enemy, it fully recharges a melee ability, which is going to be very useful for what we need. Movement ability, you can go ahead and use whatever you like. I like to use triple jump. The melee ability, I chose to use Withering Blade. You get 2 stasis shurikens that you can throw at targets, and it slows them, which is very nice. But also with this, you can go ahead and stun overload champions as well. For the grenade here, we got the Duskfield Grenade. This is also going to be something that's going to be able to slow targets and freeze them as well. Again, it's going to be very nice for slowing down enemies. Now moving on to the aspects here, the first one we have here is Stylist Executioner. After you defeat a target affected by any elemental debuff, it grants invisibility and true sight, and after performing a Stylist Execution, your next melee attack, while invisible, weakens targets. So this is going to be a great way to get invisibility and also weaken targets, so that way everything's going to be a little bit easier to kill. And the good thing about being invisible is, of course, you can go ahead and use that time to go ahead and res a teammate or kind of just reposition yourself. For the second aspect here, we got Winter's Shroud. When you dodge by nearby targets, it slows them. And of course, slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration, which is going to help you get another dodge. So this is going to be all very useful. Of course, we need dodges to get our melee back as well, so keep that in mind. Next up, we're going to move on to the fragments here. First one I'm going to go ahead and choose to use is going to be the Facet of Ruin, which increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target, and increases the area effect when solar ignitions. This is basically just going to mean whenever you shatter a frozen target, it's going to have a higher area of effect. Next, we got Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration, and while Transcendent, melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. So using Transcendence with this build is going to be very big as well, because you're going to be throwing out grenades and your melee's like crazy, which is going to be very easy for a lot of ad clear, or if you have a couple champions in front of you, that's also what I recommend using it. Third here, we got Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets afflicted with stasis or strand debuffs grants bonus light transcendent energy, which is going to be helpful for getting transcendent more. Next, we have Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates faster. Of course, that's going to be helping us get our dodge faster. And last, we got Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant, and powered melee final blows make you and nearby allies radiant, which is going to help us against the barrier champions. Now let's take a look at our seasonal artifact and the mods that would go great with this build. You're going to have quite a few options here to go ahead and choose from. I'm just going to go ahead and list out a couple that I like to use. First one is going to be Void Hegemony. While you have a Void or Prismatic subclass equipped, defeating weakened targets provides a small Void overshield, which is going to be very helpful, of course. Then next we have Radiant Orbs. While you have a Solar or Prismatic subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you radiant, which again is going to help against those champions. Then we have Expanding Abyss. Void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. And then of course lastly we got Shield Crush. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, and while you're amplified or radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. So this is just going to be something that helps us get our melee and our grenade back even faster. Next, let's go ahead and optimize our armor with stats and mods. Something that you still really want to prioritize on hunters is going to be resilience. You do want that damage reduction to 30%. Something you also want to keep in mind is your mobility, because whenever your mobility goes higher, it reduces the cooldown of your class ability, which you kind of really want your class ability for this, especially if you want to get your melees up as soon as possible. But something else you can also go take a look at is going to be discipline. Of course, we want to get those grenades back as fast as possible. Strength here, I really wouldn't worry too much about them. You already got 2 more, plus your class ability can get you some anyways. So really what I'm going to go ahead and recommend is resilience, then mobility, and then discipline. Next up, let's go ahead and start with our armor mods. Of course, we're going to be starting with the helmet. First one I chose to use is going to be Void Siphon. Rapid Void Final Blows create an Orb of Power. Next, we got Heavy Ammo Finder. Increases the drop chance of heavy ammo upon defeat. And the next thing I chose to use was Heavy Ammo Scout. That way, when one of your ammo finder perks creates a brick of heavy ammo for you, it also creates one for your allies as well, which is going to be very helpful in a Grandmaster. Next, we got the gauntlets. I chose to use momentum transfer. Causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. And then we have impact induction, which causing damage with your powered melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. And then finally, we have focusing strike, which grants class ability when you cause damage with your powered melee attack. So whenever you use your powered melee, you're going to be able to get your class ability and grenade energy back, which is going to be helpful. When you use your grenade, you're going to be able to get your melee back, which is going to be helpful. So we're kind of trying to rotate all of our abilities here. That way we can have them up as much as possible. But now this is where we go ahead and move on to the chest armor, and of course the exotic. We're going to be using Gyrfalcons here. Your void weapons gain volatile rounds after you merge from being invisible. When you are invisible and defeat a combatant while using a finisher, all of your weapons gain bonus damage, and you or nearby allies gain a reserve of overshield and improved class ability regeneration. These reserve overshields can be deployed by using a class ability. This is pretty cool here. Not only are you going to be able to get volatile rounds and do more damage, but you're also going to go ahead and get an overshield that you can go ahead and use whenever you use your class ability. Again, something that's going to be super unique and really helpful to any team in any Grandmaster or even a harder raid. For the chest pieces, I choose to use some resist mods here. Of course, I got harmonic, which is basically just going to be the solar because it's going to match our super. Then I chose to use arc resist, and then lastly, I do have concussive dampener, which is just going to reduce the incoming area of effect damage from combatants. I would definitely recommend changing these up, just kind of depending on whatever you're running that week. Then next, of course, we got the leg armor here. First one I'm going to go ahead and choose is going to be the repercussion mod, which replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. And then we have insulation, which reduces class ability cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. And then lastly, we got absolution, which reduces all ability cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. So again, get those orbs. It's going to be incredibly helpful, but I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit of an easier way to get these orbs while we go ahead and talk about our class item here. So the first one is going to be distribution, reducing all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets, and then powerful attraction, which automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. So you're definitely going to be dodging quite a lot with this build, so this is going to help you get any orbs that are going to be around you. And of course, the orbs are going to be able to get you your melee and your grenade back faster. And then last, we got Reaper, which shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon, Final Blow, is going to spawn an orb of power. So this whole build's obviously going to spawn tons of orbs for you and going to be very helpful. Now let's talk weapons. These are the ones that I'm using, but of course, if you want to swap them out, you absolutely can. For the kinetic slot here, I'm going to be using the Lingering Dread, which is going to be a stasis grenade launcher. It comes with disorienting grenades, it has auto-loading holster, and of course, we got demolition on it, so if we get any kills with it, then it'll help us get our grenade back a little bit faster. It's definitely one of those weapons where it's nice to fire and forget, and then next time you want to use it, it's already reloaded for you. For the energy weapon, this is going to be the exotic slot. I'm going to be using Graviton Lance. Graviton Lance is absolutely destroying any content right now. It's very powerful. Of course, it's a void weapon, which is going to be buffed from our Gyrfalcons exotic. This is something that's very obvious that you should go ahead and try. And then lastly, we got the heavy slot. It's going to be the commemoration. This is also going to be something that's void. I got to roll with reconstruction and killing tally, backup mag in it, so it has tons of ammo in it. Something that can absolutely melt champions as well. And whenever you want to do damage to any bosses, of course, this is what you want to use. Again, like I mentioned before, if you want to go ahead and swap any of these out, you absolutely can. This is just what I found to be very useful and work really well with this build. Last, let's go ahead and talk about playstyle. What you want to do is you want to use your grenade and your melees to freeze any enemies that are going to be in front of you. Of course, using your class ability near enemies are going to be able to get you your melee back, and your melee, of course, can stun overload champs, but also picking up orbs of power will give you radiant that can go ahead and break barrier shields as well, so you don't necessarily need to run any mods that are specific to that. But that's it for today's build guide. This build is very easy to use, and you can get through any Grandmaster you want. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content or builds, and let me know in the comments below what you want to see next. And until next time, stay safe, Guardians.